So, you guys know that municipal broadband and net neutrality is a big part of the mission on this show. That's a big issue that we talk about quite often. And I'm trying to get municipal broadband in my community of Pasadena. What is municipal broadband if you're new to this? Municipal broadband is city-owned internet, where instead of paying AT&T or Comcast for your internet access, you pay a city and a municipality, similar to how you pay for your garbage takeout or you pay for the streets or whatever. It wouldn't be via taxes. You would still have a cable bill. Now, cities across the country have been doing this, and it's been amplified for a number of reasons. One is the loss of net neutrality. Two is the way big cable has price gouged us. So, and a Harvard study has revealed that cities that do this, cities that invest in their own broadband infrastructure pretty much 100% of the time. And we went through that study more extensively on this show. You can find it in our net neutrality municipal broadband playlist. Cities that have built their own internet infrastructure pretty much 100% of the time, the city offers better internet at a cheaper price than big cable does. All right. So that's what's going on here. That's this issue. Now, a couple large cities, New York, San Francisco, LA being among them, have some extensive plans for a broadband plan in their city that has some good and bad to it. So let's look at this. This is from Ars Technica, and this looks specifically at New York City's plan. New York City's broadband plan calls for fiber everywhere with ISPs sharing the network. Okay, so here's the short of it. This guy, John Broadkins, writes about these issues a lot. He does some very good analysis in this field. City will invest in network, but here's the not so great news, but success depends heavily on private ISPs. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. That's a red flag. This is a red flag. Okay, so because it basically incorporates, well, let's read on. The New York City government has released an internet master plan that calls for universal broadband throughout the 5 boroughs, relying on open access fiber networks that can be used by multiple ISPs. The plan, announced by Mayor Bill de Blasio and Chief Technology Officer John Paul Farmer yesterday, says New York City will prioritize and optimize open access and neutral host infrastructure, which can be shared by multiple operators to lower costs, increase competition, blah, 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 blah. All right, so here's what the plan actually says. Based on the data and analysis contained in this master plan, the city has determined that universal broadband calls for an open access fiber optic infrastructure built out of nearly every street intersection with an aggregation point in every neighborhood. Leveraging city real estate's assets and public rights of way will allow network operators to extend fiber optic infrastructure from the intersection to, okay. So here's the thing. Now let's get down to this public-private ownership. Like the LA and San Francisco plan, New York wants to rely heavily on private operators, but the city says it would also do much of the investment itself. So here's what the plan says. The city will invite proposals for the coordinated use of public real estate assets through a new universal solicitation for broadband, USB. For the purposes of this master plan, city assets refers to those assets that are owned, operated, or otherwise controlled by the city or available for city use. Private operators will be able to respond with requests from assets from multiple city agencies. The city will prioritize approaches that enable multiple operators to share in the use of an asset. The city will review responses to the USB for feasibility of implementation and potential impact on city resources. The plan estimates building the needed infrastructure would cost $2.1 billion. All right, so here's the problem. Basically, what they're saying is, here's the good news and the bad. So the good news is they're investing in providing broadband for all of the area, especially areas that are currently underserved. That's the good news. And they're going to have public infrastructure of internet access. That's the good news. The bad news is they're inviting these big cable ISPs to the table. Furthermore, now we don't have all the concrete details of funding, but an initial concern here is, so they're basically saying they're going to build internet infrastructure, but a private ISP like an AT&T or a Comcast can participate in that infrastructure and use it. However, they're not paying for it. It looks like the city is paying for it, and then they're going to just entertain proposals from different big cable companies. So why does big cable have the right to charge you, the consumer, for internet when you paid for the internet infrastructure? This is inviting an entity at the table that doesn't belong there. In a way, a way to look at this is basically the public option for healthcare. This is basically where the private insurance companies still get to exist, but we have a public option. That's basically what this is. Is it better than what we have now? Yeah. But does it go as far as we need? No. And they hide under this competition verbiage. Well, there's nothing competitive about building an infrastructure with city dollars, i.e. the taxpayers, you and me, and then allowing big cable to use those resources to price gouge the consumers that paid for it in the first place. That makes zero sense. So that's the bad news here. Now, getting back to the study we did for Harvard, the study Harvard did. I did not do that study for Harvard. Wow, that was a misspeak. I got ahead of myself there. Now, that study that I did for Harvard, that I did by myself, armed with nothing but a cat and a ruler, because I'm a fucking genius. No, I did not. Harvard did the study. We talked about it on the show. Getting back to the Harvard study, now, whenever the city builds internet infrastructure and the ISPs are allowed to still try to get their slice of that market, right? The city always wins. The city always offers better internet at a better price, and the residents catch on. So in a way, maybe this is just a slow burn to knock big cable out. But there are some concerning parts about this. Again, there's some good news because this is better than what we have now. The bad news is, well, it invites these predatory players to the table. Similar to healthcare. It's like, okay, the reason the Affordable Care Act was a concern, it's better than absolutely nothing, but you invite these predators to the table. You include the insurance companies. And to really solve the net neutrality battle, to really solve, to guarantee a free and open internet that is of high quality, we need to take big cable out of the picture. And we need to take the internet back, which, by the way, it should have been in our hands in the first place. You know what developed the internet? A bunch of tax-funded initiatives. We funded the internet. We, the people, funded the internet. And then we allowed big cable to form an organized duopoly to dictate our access to it. That was a mistake. And that's why we're in a lot of trouble with the loss of net neutrality, because these ISPs, they don't want to follow net neutrality rules. Why don't they? Because their first priority isn't giving you access to the internet. Their first priority is price gouging you and making money and screwing you over. That's what their priority is. So if you take it out of the hands of big cable into the hands of the city, well, then you're going to have the internet. The entire city is going to use it. So they're going to have net neutrality written into the charters. And they're going to have the best, they're going to give you the best connection possible because everyone wants great internet. I promise you, there is not one mayor in this country that doesn't want their porn to load as fast as possible. When they got to get something quick done before a meeting, you kidding me? Come on. Let's be real here. I'm just being pragmatic. So there you go. I mean, there's some good news and bad. It's good news that this is being talked about. It's good news that there's plans being made. It's bad news that the private ISPs are invited to the table, especially given this model. Now, we don't know all the details of the financing, so I'm not trying to jump to conclusions here. But based on what this article says, where it's like, okay, it's going to be a city-owned asset, meaning the city pays for it, meaning the residents pay for it. But private companies can make bids to then use it. So basically, AT&T or Comcast can charge you for internet from infrastructure that you built. And they can give you shittier internet connection, should they decide to. That's shittier than the infrastructure you already paid for. That's backward. As opposed to your city maintains it, so you pay what you should be paying the city for the upkeep of the infrastructure you invested in. That's why, again, going back to that Harvard study, that's why all these cities, it's cheaper to just pay your city for your internet and you get better internet. Why? Because they're committed to making a great product for you. That's what they want. They want good internet. And you're paying for the upkeep. You're not paying for a CEO's salary. You're not paying for infrastructure elsewhere because they have a nationwide duopoly. You're not paying for them to contract out everything to third party. You're not paying to make a shareholder happy. You're paying your city for a city-provided service. And that's why municipal broadband needs to happen all across the country, and it needs to happen in the right way. And this plan, while there are some good components to it, it has a lot of concerns. And hopefully it's nothing more than the city slowly pushes big cable out, but it might not unroll that way. And there's a lot of concerns here. And given the corruption of a Bill de Blasio, those concerns should be very front and center. So it's good that this is being talked about, but a broadband plan that involves the private ISPs that allows them to further infect and engage in a predatory nature, the infrastructure the city is going to pay for, that is completely backwards and completely corrupt, and it's corporate welfare. That's what it is. It's welfare for big cable. It's giving them an opportunity to price gouge and predatorily make money off of infrastructure that the city paid for, and that is corrupt. And it won't work out as well. All right, so that's kind of what's going on there. Joseph, thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll see this unfold. We'll see this. We'll see what else happens with this as it unfolds.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your